Hello and welcome to the Boss It podcast with Mark Edwards and Michael Humblet. This podcast is released every week and is an over-the-shoulder look of a frank and candid discussion between two experienced software executives, providing you with useful tips, techniques and the latest concepts to help you grow your software business in the fast-paced digital age. So let's get into it. Here is Mark Edwards and Michael Humblet.
Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Mark. How are you?
Good. We made it after our conversation yesterday. I think it was yesterday afternoon when I was at Schiphol Airport in the Netherlands.
Yeah,
trying to decide whether I was going to get back home finally.
We'll keep doing it on a Saturday morning because that's the most quiet moment in the whole weekend and week, actually, for me. So.
Yes, I think it does for me as well. I was just not quite sure whether I was going to be able to get up in the morning, actually. I was starting to feel quite tired.
Yeah. So today, I would like to discuss at a certain point something about, with all your experience, time management. It's something that keeps coming back. And I see it in our daily lives. It's the struggle. Any advice you could give me, I would be highly, highly appreciative of that.
Sure. Yeah, it's interesting, actually, because I was thinking about some of the skills, because we when we're working with our clients, we tend to be looking at the business, but there's an element within the service that we give as we walk around the wheel with them about management, and I think that what I want to do is to develop more for those senior executives, because I come across examples, and this is what I was thinking about it, is this week working with one of my clients, and I could hear and I could see that he was stressed. And because he was stressed, I wasn't able to communicate with him as effectively. He's not listening. He wasn't in the best frame of mind to work on the business. And I thought, actually, we need to think about that. And time management is one of those things.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Prioritization, what do you do first? I read several books about it, but it doesn't always mean you apply them properly. I think the nature of the beast will always prevail. With that, I mean, for instance, I booked Friday afternoon to do some writing, to do some really work into some online lessons. So I need to think, shut down everything, right? And what happens? I do the thing that's most natural to me. I think I phoned 22 people.
Yes.
So I didn't have time to do the difficult part, which is the writing, the creation. And I keep doing that, and it's a trap, and I see it coming, and I still do it, and I think it's because my natural tendency goes into phoning, being social, and actually just creating more work, because I want to close, right? I'm closing one after the other, and it's a nightmare for me, and I find it hard to escape that one. Yeah,
well, it's an important aspect of what you do.
True.
You don't want a salesperson who's not interested in closing deals. That would be crazy. No. And I think you're right. I think you made an interesting statement there, actually, is that I think that the fact that you understand yourself, that also helps with time management, because you will see that there is a tendency to get pulled to those things that you like doing.
Yeah, true.
I can remember being a student and having to write essays and so on, and sort of locking myself in a room and then noticing that I've just spent the last 10 minutes getting a fly out the room. And then I go and think, I need to go and get myself a drink now. And then I think, I need to go and get a pencil sharpener to sharpen it. You can go on forever if there's and put tasks off. But, I think as you get older, you start to spot that in yourself. The thing that I do, the first thing I always say and think about for myself, because my time management isn't always good, and it's one of those things that I have to sort of catch myself to say, actually, I'm getting sloppy here. Pull yourself back. What are the basics? Keep it simple, whatever system, because I, like you, I've read lots of books on time management, and I think sometimes these systems and techniques that they put down are just great to write about. Just so complicated. You think, wow, it's sort of logical, but you're never going to do it. So mine is really simple. I use the Tasks app that's on iPhones,
Yeah.
because I use an iPhone. In fact, this week I had two iPads going, and it syncs with Outlook. So anything that I put on there, it's on whatever device I'm working on. So if I'm on the phone, if I'm on the train, and maybe I've just got my iPhone that I've got access to, I can pull that list and I can have a look at it. And the other thing is that it does something that I think for me is the simplest of all, is it enables me to prioritize really quickly. You drag to the top the most important task to do, and or the task may be that you perhaps know that you're likely to put off, the one that you're not relishing. You know,
Yeah.
the idea about eat the frog first thing in the morning, because the rest of the day gets easy after you've
Yeah.
eaten a frog. You know, a live frog.
It's like a hangover. Get to the first lunch. If you survive that, the day is going to be good.
Yeah, similar sort of thing. So what I tend to do is Sunday evening, when I'm thinking about the week ahead, I check to make sure that my appointments and meetings are in my diary, and that all my calls that I'm going to make are in the diary.
Yeah.
And then I look at what are the things. When I get to the end of the week, I think to myself, for my role, and that's the other thing, is that's something that I think has changed over the last year. Is I think I've been thinking a lot, and especially this year, is what's my role within the business? What am I here to do? You know, I have to provide. I'm going to be leading the business, creating the vision, creating the right culture within the business, making sure that I'm removing the obstacles for the other people within the company. Getting clarity about that helps me on the Sunday night when I think, what do I want to achieve this week? What are the key things that when I get to Friday evening, I think that's a good week. And
Yeah.
even if it's one thing, make sure
Yeah.
you get that one thing done.
I used to write these endless to-do lists with everything, so I couldn't forget anything. And then I realized you just get frustrated. So I do the same. I wake up, I check the agenda, and then every day, and then I write 2 things max. And if I get them done, it's okay.
Yeah,
And you prioritize because of that.
that to-do list
Yeah.
way of doing it, I used to do exactly the same thing, and I would look back, and then because I would carry across anything that you didn't do, and then after
Yeah.
3 months, I remember looking back and I had 150 things on my to-do list.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So I prioritize it. So I do that for the week, and then I also do it for the day. I start in the morning. I give myself 20 minutes to say, again, to be really satisfied for today, what's that one thing that I really need to get done? And I drag it to the top. And then I say, how long is that going to take? And if it's an hour, I'll give myself 90 minutes.
Yeah.
Because things
Like
typically take longer. And then I think, what's the second thing? If I've got that done, you tend to get on a bit of a roll, I find, is if you get something done and you're pleased with yourself, it sort of motivates you to move on to the next. So I'll then drag up, I think, what's the second most important thing? And then I will fit these things in on my calendar around the fixed dates, my meetings and my calls. Do it that way.
I have this, the hardest part for me is when I go into storytelling mode and clients ask me to redesign their sales pitch completely.
Yeah.
And this happens a lot. So then I am really, it takes half an hour to get into it. I'm like trying to do everything except that. And then after half an hour, I pull myself together and then I start and then I go really deep. And it's like, add another hour and a half. I have the whole story finished and I come out of this coma, how do you call that? Meditational phase where suddenly the world exists again. Very, very weird. But I cannot handle that too much per day. I mean, I could do one
really
maybe
intense.
every 2 days.
Yeah.
Because it goes so deep, and I feel my body even actually. Actually, after that, you should go running or something like that. That would be the ideal combination.
That's really interesting. Actually, you say that. I was thinking something similar because I think it was on Tuesday. I had 5 back-to-back meetings with a couple of existing clients and 3 new clients. And when I'm in those meetings, I find I'm really concentrating. It is almost like a meditative state. I'm getting to understand their business, trying to get to understand them, their personality, trying to get a feel and profile for the business. At the end of the day, I was shattered.
Yeah,
really, I felt
exactly.
physically quite drained, quite energized in the fact that I'd really enjoyed it. I do enjoy meeting entrepreneurs. and it was quite different, the people that I was meeting, you know, from a guy who was essentially had a startup pre-revenue,
Yeah.
but really exciting what he was doing. He'd already raised $1.5 million, and he wanted to raise probably an equal amount as well. And we're looking at how I could probably work with him. To somebody who had a business, quite a small business actually, been going for 20 plus years, but highly profitable and very few employees.
Yeah.
And he was all,
yeah.
the interesting thing was, and one of the things I wanted to mention today, he was almost apologetic in saying, well, it's not very big, it may not be of interest to you guys. But when I started to talk to him about it, he had more profit than some really big organisations. Actually, I've got to tell you a story. This is really did make me laugh. Client of mine, I've known for many years, many years. One of their sales guys, really good guy. He was talking to me. We had a meeting. I was taking him into one of my contacts. We had a meeting afterwards, and we were sitting down having a coffee. And he said, I have to tell you this story. He said that he and one of his sales guys went in to see a really big organisation. And I won't mention the name, but really big, well-known in the IT sector. And they were meeting a divisional manager, IT manager. And they went in, and this guy was really arrogant with them, not very friendly. And he asked them to do their pitch, and they've got a great bit of technology, really interesting. And he sort of folded his arms, and he said to them, "Look," he said, "we've got a company here." He said, "We've got 20,000 employees in this company." He said, "And I look at the size of your business." He said, "Why should we be interested in you?" And he said, my salesman just went straight back at him. He said, "Well, for a start," he said, "we made $1 billion more profit than you did last year," because they'd made a loss.
Yeah.
And I thought, what a great answer. I loved it.
Yeah. That's a really good one.
Yeah. I love salesman stories.
Yeah. Exactly. I was dealing with a company that specialized this week in, it's like startup as a service. So you see them popping up in every country, and they actually, you can hire them to do a startup for you. So large corporates hire these guys to do startups. And interestingly, they asked me for a quote of my services, and I kind of started fighting because I knew there are so many of these, I call them sales trainers, and they come in and they sell this whole scheme, and actually it doesn't make any difference. So company can say, "Hey, I'm doing this," but nobody actually implements it. And I go really nervous because I used to hire these guys to do it with my sales teams. So I'm telling them, "No, not going to do it. I'm not going to build you a large offer. This is how I would tackle it," right? In a completely different way, but it's very efficient. And they get really nervous with me. And they keep mailing me saying things like, "Michael, I need at least 2-3 offers." And I got so upset, I actually phoned them up Friday and I said, "Listen, you're selling the concept of startup as a service, and you're asking me now to sell you the most corporate approach ever. How do you rhyme that with your business model? Something's definitely wrong here." And then he went very quiet on the other side of the line. And then they said, "We'll call you back." So,
What do you mean by the most corporate model? Explain that to me.
For that, typically corporate model means you need a full-blown methodology. You've written a book, you come in, you try to here. You see that kind of approach?
Yeah. The very sort of academic
risk avoidance.
Yes.
It's like you hire top-notch consultants. It is McKinsey.
Yes.
It costs 10 times more as another. It must be good. It's like this old adagio, nobody got fired for hiring IBM. Actually, the opposite is true these days.
Yes.
So I just told them, I said, "Guys, if you're acting like that, how can you sell the service?" That's number one.
Yeah.
And number two, I cannot work with you like this. It's not going to work. It's weird.
That is amazing. You must be able to read my mind, Michael, because that's one of the points I've got listed down here. One of the things that came up this week. Exactly. Yeah. Something very, very similar to that idea. You know, what we're both saying all the time, and what we're seeing is that the software industry, the software business moves so fast now. And people who grew up in the software industry from the 90s, I think they really struggle
Yeah.
You know, it's not just that the way that these businesses now need to behave has changed, but it's the pace and it's the techniques and it's the change in marketing, it's the change in sales. And if those guys from the 90s that used the same approach that they did in the 90s because it worked for them then, they're going to fail now. Or they're going to just work harder and harder.
That's
And
the difference.
that's one aspect. That's one aspect that I've seen. And we engaged with a company, and they wanted us to do and work and look at the value within this business and how it could be leveraged. This guy puts together business plans, 90 pages.
Good God.
90 pages on a business plan. Who is going to look at that and read it apart from him? It's totally worthless. But I think, and I'm thinking, why would somebody do that? Why would they spend that time? It's a fear. I think it's partly to do with our education. The education system is sort of basing it upon methodology and data and research to say, and that will give, if I do it, base it upon all of that, the more data and research I have, the more likely that I will be successful. I don't see that. By the time they've gathered all of that data together and done all of that research and been able to analyze it, if you can, it's out of date.
But isn't it also the fact that the more I give, the higher I can make my price, the more valuable it seems. It's like I have the biggest,
oh, yes.
I'm gonna give, something like that.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
And I see that a lot with consultants, and especially junior consultants. That sometimes I wonder, I mean, imagine you would, so I do a lot of business planning and I do a lot of marketing planning. I always tell them it's 5-6 slides. If you go to a board, they will not even check it. They'll just check the numbers, or they'll just check one slide. So be careful what you do. You don't need 60 because it's no focus anymore. So I fully agree.
It's that idea about the consultants that they want to deliver a big fee on the table. So to justify it, they have to give them 100 pages.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's not hard work for them to do it. Bearing in mind, a lot of it is templated, that they use it over and over again, and they're just inserting other bit, the names of the company. A lot of it is done that way because I've seen many years ago when I first started the business, there was a report that was done by one of the big companies. One of those, I won't name them, but they just use initials. And there's a handful of initials, so you might better guess. and they had done a report on the particular sector within the document management sector. And bearing in mind this was nearly 20 years ago now, they had charged about £20,000 for this report. And one of the companies that I was dealing with, they gave me a copy of it to have a look at. And I went through it, and I thought it's beautifully presented. I mean, and especially in those days, the graphics on it, the way that they'd laid it out, the way that it was organised, and it was perfectly written, no grammatical errors at all. The data in there was total crap. It was just nonsense. And they'd grabbed some data, and because they didn't really understand the industry, and what they had done is that it was sort of like a veneer thin understanding of that sector. They had wrongly identified companies that presented themselves in a certain way, thinking that they were part of this sector, and it then taken the data from those companies and extrapolated it and made a conclusion. And it was total nonsense. And I explained, and I went through and I highlighted the companies. I said, well, that company isn't within this sector. I know it sounds similar, but there are many different forms of scanning, and that one is for scanning for when a woman is pregnant. That's scanning for babies. We're talking about document scanning. This is nonsense, And I went through that. I saw that report had been resold 15 times to other companies. They just inserted another company name.
The worst story I have, the worst loss I actually ever had, and I'm still angry about it. It's funny, residual anger. Is the following. So I'm working in a company that sells big data analytics. We have a dashboard solution. We've automated a whole principle. So we go to a large telco, not going to name you which one. We go to a very large telco, And you need to imagine, in short, what telcos do is they have, these, how do you call it, where the mast, is that called a mast in English,
Yes.
where they send out the radio waves?
Yep.
So on this mast, there are licenses all over the place. And these licenses define how many, and they buy them, they rent them actually, how many mobile phones can you have at a certain moment on one of these poles.
Yes.
The thing is, it has seasonality. For instance, a pole at the seaside will have a very high usage during the summertime, but not during the wintertime. So by playing with these licenses, by switching them on and off, you can reduce your cost. These are massive amounts. We're talking about $1 billion and a half in licenses. Just switching them properly will save you 200 million. It's ridiculous, that kind of amount. So
Yes.
we go in, we figure out that this is managed in a few Excel sheets by two people. You cannot imagine that kind of money, speaking about risk. So we go in, we look at all the data, and we say, look, for 250K, we build a solution that can actually solve this, that can really automatically give you deductions, give you the guided analysis, the whole thing. Really, really, truly impressive. We do some tests, we prove it works, we get to the board, we explain that. There is a massive fight around the 250K. So what happens? After some negotiation, a lot of negotiation, we finally get the phone call and they said, we have decided not to choose for this solution. We have decided to ask McKinsey, which is one of the top consultants in the world, to do a report and write us down what we need to do. And I asked them, how much did you pay these guys? Oh, we paid them 1 million. So I'm like flabbergasted, and I'm saying, so hang on, you're paying these guys 1 million to write a report to tell you what to do, and I'm like, I can't think anymore. I'm like, okay, you do what you do. I put down the phone. Guess who phoned me the day after? McKinsey.
McKinsey, yes.
And McKinsey said, guys, so what happened is that company paid 1 million for a report that took over some of our conclusions, and the end of the report says you need to work with these guys. You need to set it up like that. It is crazy. I was just angry because at the end we got the deal, but it just took us a year longer. And somebody got paid 1 million for nothing.
That's amazing. 1 million.
Yeah.
I have got a similar story, but it's not quite 1 million. But it did make me really think. And this was a company, so I was representing an organisation here in the UK, and we had presented it to a number of companies. We had quite a bit of interest. I think we got down to about 5 different buyers, and the organisation that we were moving towards the final stages, they had a specialist M&A executive. So all he did was he was looking for acquisitions to make, and he would typically make 2 per month. A big company, and this was right across Europe.
Yeah.
And the area whereby they were going to make this acquisition, or they were potentially looking at making this acquisition, was fairly new to them, but strategically they'd decided it was a good fit with their existing services, but they didn't have a great deal of experience. Anyway, I got on quite well with this chap, and he was asking me a lot of questions, and he saw that I specialised in this area, and he came back to me, and he said, Mark, I said, I'm really keen that we move ahead and we acquire this company. He said, I think it's a great fit. We'd started at that time, I had an indicative offer from him, and I thought, we'd negotiated a little bit, but it was in the right area, and I think definitely my client was happy. So he said to me, I've now got to put through, because he'd already got board approval. This is over £1 billion pound company. So they have their procedures and steps, and I understand that. So he had to put together a report to justify the acquisition. And essentially he's buying the company through me. So he said, I need to put a report about this industry and why we're making it and the justification. He said, you're probably the best person to write this report. He said, but I can't ask you to write it. I said, no. He said, so what I've done, he said, I've employed 2 consultants that I know. Would you mind answering a few questions? I said, I thought it was a bit unusual, but yeah, sure. So anyway, they called me, and there were 2 people talking, but I realised that as I was talking, I could hear furious typing at the other end.
Yeah, the other guys listening.
Yeah, there was a number of people in this room. So we started talking. They started asking me questions, and it's funny when although I've been in this area a long time, I thought, wow, I don't know how much I can tell them really. You sort of think, what do I really know? We started talking. We ended up going for 2 hours, and all the time they're really encouraging me, and they're saying, "This is fantastic, Mark. Great, fantastic. Thank you so much. Could you just explain about this and why does that happen like this? And what do you think about this?" And they're furiously typing away.
Oh my God.
And anyway, so I didn't hear any more about this report. All I knew was that the report had been submitted, and then I heard back that they had board approval, and we sold the business to them. And he came back to me a few months later, and he said, "Thanks very much, Mark. Just wanted to say," he said, "that's the smoothest acquisition we've ever done. It's fantastic." And he said, "By the way," he said, "that report helped." I said, How much did they charge you?" He said, 100,000. And they had it done within 2 days of my call with them.
God, good God. Now,
they just sat and tapped it down.
Hang on. If we then analyze this one step back to my deal, and then you can take your deal because you closed it. I closed it eventually.
Yeah.
What should I have done? Because then, of course, that's the ultimate question. How could I avoid that kind of business in the future? And I think on the moment I was really at board level fighting with these guys, politics and risk avoidance suddenly takes over. I should have reached out. I should have felt that McKinsey or one of the other guys, Big Three, was playing game. I should have reached out to them and said, let's do this together. And I would have been way faster. I might have probably given away some margin, but it would have gone 10 times smoother and everybody would have been happy. And McKinsey could have sold me to other telcos. I think that's my learning from pure sales tactics there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably the smart thing to do. That could have a big upside for you. For me, that wouldn't work.
No?
And this is just personality thing, and I think maybe I'm getting in my own way here. I'm not very keen on working with these big consultancies, and I think what my approach is that when I get into that, well, I call it bullshit land, when you think this is just ridiculous, I'm just going to call it out. That's sort of the approach that I have now, is that when I feel that we're heading that way, I just want to say, look, hang on a minute. My objectives with you are to help you get here. But what you're doing is just, I think it's crazy. Now, you can disagree with me if you like, but let me have my say. And that tends to be my approach. And sometimes that will work and sometimes it won't. But I struggle working and working in a way that I just think is crazy.
Yeah. No. I
can't say it's right or wrong, but
No, but longer term, I believe this works because it's your duty to say it because that's the way you work, that's the way you believe, and sometimes I think in 1 on 5 it will go wrong, but actually you don't want to work with them because it's going to be trouble. Actually, if you really think about it, it's going to be trouble. I mean, this company also, I'm really wondering, man, it's going to be trouble. They're going to fight me the whole way through, and it's never going to be success.
Yeah.
And so why am I even bothering?
That goes back to the other conversation that we've had about speaking with an authentic voice.
Yeah,
you need to understand yourself, but you need to communicate with your client. And you say, look, if you want that sort of approach, that big corporate approach, with the 300-page reports, that's not us. That's not me. I don't want to do that. I wouldn't enjoy that. That's not where I'm going to have a strength. If you need that for some reason, I'd question why you need it and its usefulness. But if you still need it, go get it somewhere else. But it won't be from here. I don't want to do that.
I gave them then, the trick is to give them choice. I strongly believe in choice. And I just told them, I said, look, there are 2 options. We can go that route, the corporate route and all the documents, but I'm not your guy. Or you can win.
Yes.
Or you can be efficient.
Yes.
Or you can go really fast. And I mean, I've done this so many times. And I just gave them 2 numbers of large customers. I said, just ring the CEO, see what he says. So
I like the choice you've given them.
yeah.
So here's your choice, guys. You can go this way. You can spend hundreds of thousands of pounds.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mind with these people. It will fail, or you can come with me. It will be a lot cheaper and it will succeed. I mean, you choose.
Yeah. Good. Give me a choice.
We'll give them the choice. That's a good choice. I've got one story. One story before we finish that I want to say, because it was something that occurred to me and I thought, oh, I must say this to Michael when we do the podcast, because I'd been talking to a client and I'd been saying to them, bring yourself out from diving into talking and about your solution and your software. Spend more time getting into the problems that your clients have and present from that perspective. And I'd been on the telephone and I'd been thinking, did I put that across to him in the right way? Because I think that's also my responsibility, is explaining it in a way that makes sense. And funny, I was coming out of Schiphol Airport, and I don't know if you know, but all of the cars there, the taxis, they're electric cars.
Yeah.
And I got straight into a Tesla. It's another story, but I'd booked to go into a Best Western. I'll never ever book to go in a Best Western again. But so I said to him, a Best Western, please. And it was a Tesla. And I said to him, oh, and it was the new X model, I think it is. I was quite interested. So I said to him, so this is a Tesla, isn't it? And he said, yes, it is. Right, your hotel, he said, there are 5 in the area. Let me see which one, Best Westerns, that is. Let me see which one it is. So he took the piece of paper from me, he read it, he looked it up on the map, he pointed, he said, this is where your particular hotel is. He said, it's going to take us 9 minutes to get there, as long as we don't get too much traffic. And he just ignored the point I made. And I thought, if this was the typical sort of old style software guy that was driving this taxi, as soon as I got in there and asked him a question, he would have said, well, I've been a taxi driver since 1987. And I started because, and then start telling me about the stats on his Tesla. Whereas this guy, this guy wants to get to his hotel. He's probably tired. I'm going to find it for him really quickly. I'm going to show to him how long it's going to take. And I'm just going to take him there really efficiently without just waffling on to him about every other thing about myself. And I thought that really typifies it,
I give it a spin. I do something very similar, and then I say when people show me their sales pitch, I always say, so imagine I'm the CEO, whomever you're trying to sell to. What do I care? What do I care about?
Absolutely.
And then they look at me and I said, I only care about me.
Yeah.
I said, and all the rest, your logo is, and then I use very strong language. I'm not going to do it now, but I have lots of strong language. I use them because I just want to wake them up. And then I said, now look back at that presentation in the second slide where you have your big logo. They don't, doesn't mean anything. And I completely wrecked the whole slide deck. And it's always the same thing. It's like the last 2 slides of the 50 slide deck, the last 2, 3, those are most of the time the most interesting ones. So I just flipped the whole story. I said, start with the end. What's the effect? Start with the end. That'll always work because that's relevant. That's what you do. Not the whole way leading there. It's the end effect.
Yeah. I've seen what you do with slide decks, and I love that because I think that so many companies out there, it's as though they're trying to kill sales. They're trying to bore people to death with them. Yeah. Pages with so much text on there, so complicated.
If I come back to the story you told, you know what it is? It's 2 things, I think. One, it's insecurity. They want to tell everything they have to make sure that at least one of those 50 features hits the nail. So for me, that's insecurity. And they don't dare to say the value prop like in one slide. They can't. And that's one of the big issues they have. And I'm like, but you're trying to sell to everybody the same message. It doesn't work. You need to have several messages for several roles, several industries, whatever. Yeah. So you need to tune that back.
This taxi driver was totally focused on me. He parked up, he got out of his car straight away, he opened the door for me, he asked if I needed any bags to go in the back, which I didn't. He closed it, and then he was totally focused on where I wanted to go. He didn't bore me about what he's been doing, how long he's been a taxi driver, how fast his Tesla goes, all those sort of things. He just was going to get me there and give me the information that I needed. it's a great example.
Exactly.
You know how long we've been going?
I have no clue.
34 minutes.
Look at that.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's good. This is our 5th podcast now, and I think we're getting close because we said we would get a buffer of these podcasts together before we actually publish them. But we've got some people helping us in doing that and sort of tidying them up and doing the graphics and things. I think we're at a position now where we can get these published. So at some stage we'll have an audience, hopefully. And by getting to number 5, I'm hoping that they will sort of have a good feel for what we're about.
Yeah, and if anybody wants to send us a message or send us an email with some questions or some topics that you want us to talk about or give our opinion, our vision, or help, in essence, just don't hold back. Your questions are our oxygen.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. We'll have a link so that you can respond to us really easily. And let us know your thoughts. Tell us if you don't like it. Tell us if there are things that we do that irritate you. I don't care. You know, we're both thick-skinned, but it also tell us about the things that really work for you, and bit by bit we'll evolve. And I'm enjoying it. I really want to do this. I want to make sure that we do it on a weekly basis. Keep it disciplined. Get it done.
Perfect. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks. Good speaking to you, Michael. Thanks. Bye.